Okay, I think this might be a good time to start. Please let me know if it's not. So, hello everybody. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Nihal Daraj. I'm a teaching assistant at Imperial College London, and I'm also the SB International YMX chair. So that's about me. And I would like actually to start by knowing more about you. So if that's okay, if you can get into Menti, go to www.menti.com and use this code. It would be super. So we can actually get to know you. Just gonna leave it up for a second. Maybe I'll type in the code in the chat. Okay. Thank you, Ali. So let me launch the survey. Okay. You can see my screen right now. Okay, what year are you in? Years. Yep. Okay. Most people are in third year. Okay, and a couple of fresh grads. No one is in the first year, which is good. Okay, so let's go to the second question. Which is, where are you from? You have to type this in. Okay. Mostly Bahrain, I presume. Iran and, yeah, Bahrain and Iran. All right. So let's move into the next question. Okay. All right. So let's go to the third question. I'm sorry. Are you interested in joining oil and gas sector? Okay, 13 yes and 1 maybe. No one is no, which is good. Okay. So moving to the next question. Have you ever done an internship with an oil company? Or a gas company for that matter, like anything in the industry? Okay, 4 people yes and 16 no. I don't know why it says none of the options are correct, but really everything is correct. So fifth question. What part of oil and gas industry you are interested in? It is upstream, midstream, downstream, or I actually don't know what this means. Okay. Okay, 8 people don't know what that means. 5 upstream, 1 midstream, and 4 downstream. Okay, that's good, distribution across the board. Just a hint, if you don't know what these things are, we're going to be talking about them in just a minute. So, do you find SB membership useful? This is an interesting one. Okay, I'm going to be disappointed if I so no. Oh, I'm not seeing results. I don't know why. I know 20 people voted. I was excited for this one. I'm not sure what's happening. Okay. So maybe go back and see. Yep. So 12 yes and 8 don't know. So no one said no, which is again good. Last question. So are you going to convert to a professional membership after graduation? Yes, no, or maybe. It depends on the field of work that I'm going to be in. Okay, 13 maybe, and 6 certainly. Okay. All right. So thank you so much for taking this kind of questionnaire. I feel like we're friends already, and I'm really happy to see what you guys are thinking before I start doing anything or presenting anything. And maybe by the end of this presentation, all the maybes would turn into yeses. So let's see. So yeah, I'm just gonna walk you through the agenda of what we are doing today. Sorry, just let me close the other, stop sharing and share again so you can see the full screen. All right. And here we go. Yep, that's good now. Okay, so our agenda for today, I'm going to be talking to you about the oil and gas industry structure so you kind of know what's out there. And then we're going to zero in onto the required skills and possible jobs for chemical engineers. And we're going to be talking about 2 things that are really essential in getting a job: the importance of networking, how to build your network, and why networking is something that is very essential. And we are going to look how SPE can actually help you do that. So let's start. The oil and gas structure. Let's start first thing about the oil and gas sector or sectors within the oil and gas, which is what you just saw in the questionnaire. We have an upstream part, we have a midstream part, and we have downstream part. What does that mean? It means basically, imagine you're standing on the well itself, right? So all what's coming out from the formation is your upstream. And then everything that's going away from you is basically midstream and downstream. So the pipelines and all these things are the midstream, and then until you go to the refineries and so on, which is called downstream. So everything basically behind you, or like coming from the formation to the surface, it's upstream. Okay, so to just sum up, upstream basically all these things: the offshore production, onshore production, until your oil or gas are on the surface, and then they will go through compressors or pumping stations and so on and so forth to pipelines or storage or tanks or any kind of storage, and then they will go to a refinery, and then will go to the end use of industry, houses, utilities, and mobilities, and so on and so forth. So let's just take it step by step to understand what's happening in each one of those. So the upstream, how does the upstream start? It starts with exploration, which is your geologist and geophysicist and geoscientist. They will look into an area, they will look into some seismic surveys, they will look into the data of the area, and they will say, without going into further details, that we think there is oil and gas here. All right. So what you will do, or the company will do, is drill something called exploration well, just to confirm that we have oil and gas in this place. So here comes the drilling. So when that happens, you find oil, you start the next phase, which is development. You drill actually more wells to get more oil out. And you start your production to get basically this all oil out from your field and then into other places, basically just, selling it. So it goes through the whole value chain. After you've completely depleted your oil field, what does depleted mean? It means you basically took all the oil you can take out of your reservoir. Then you start decommissioning, which is like, closing your wells, removing all the equipment, and just making sure everything is okay, and you would leave. So this is basically the value chain of the upstream. Okay, so we agreed that everything well related and reservoir related is upstream. Then we move from the upstream to the midstream, which is basically your pipelines and your processing, transportation, storage, and trading. Processing, you guys, I think you know a lot about this. When your oil comes out of the well, basically it goes through 3-phase separators and 2-phase separators just to separate the water, separate the gas, and all these things. And once you separate them, you transport your oil or your gas through pumping stations or compressor stations, and then you store it, and then you sell it. All right? So here's the kind of midstream cycle. The last one, which is downstream, is your refineries, because sometimes you sell the oil as crude oil to the refinery, and not sometimes, it's all the time. And then the refinery basically, you have distillation towers, hydrocrackers, and so on and so forth. I'm sure you know all about this. And it converts your crude oil into the end product, which is the gasoline that you use in your car, the LPG, the jet fuel, and all these things. And also get transported to the marketing part, which is, the stations that actually sells these things. So I hope now we are clear on that we have 3 parts: upstream, midstream, and downstream, and what each part does. Hopefully that's clear. So now let's look at some examples. So in types of companies, we have something called NOCs, IOCs, and operator companies. What does this stand for? So NOC, National Oil Companies, IOC, International Oil Companies. National oil companies like Tatweer, for example. IOCs like, for example, Shell or BP or these kind of companies. And we have something else called service companies. So what does each one do? The operator, or like maybe let's have another one, which is the National Oil Company, owns the land. So your geologist finds something, he goes and talks to his boss. These folks are all from the National Oil Company. They own the land and they own the subsurface, but they don't own equipment. And we agreed that once we find oil and gas, or we think we found oil and gas, we would have to drill an exploration well to confirm that we have oil and gas. So the person or the company that will come with the equipment and drill this well, it's called service companies. And then when you put all your casing, all your pipelines, and all these completion, all these things, it's all through your service companies. So they basically take your oil from subsurface to the surface. So we kind of agreed now. NOCs, national oil companies, and IOCs, international oil companies, and then we have service companies. Okay, so what does the international oil companies does though? They, like for example, BP, or for example, Shell, they have a place that their HQ is in, which is in this case, for example, London or Amsterdam. But then they have investments and projects in other countries. So if we look, for example, at ADNOC, the partner of ADNOC is ExxonMobil, which is an American company. So they own part of the shares and they own part of the oil. Of course, it depends on the agreement between the two companies, but they are not the main one. The main one is ADNOC because the land is ADNOC's. Hopefully that did not create any confusion. I know I'm throwing a lot of ideas, but this is basically the basic things that you need to know. So when we look here, you have the upstream, only upstream. They don't work in anything, just upstream. These only work in downstream, so they are basically refinery companies. They don't work in anything else. And these are midstream. And then you have your major international oil and gas companies, which really have the whole value chain. So, for example, if you worked with BP, ExxonMobil, Total, Saudi Aramco, you can do anything. You can be a reservoir engineer or you can be a refining engineer. So the two ends of the value chain. This is when it comes to the oil and gas companies. Okay, so for the service companies, which is the second part, upstream, Schlumberger, Halliburton, Baker Hughes, and so on and so forth. So these guys, you would call them if you want to drill a well, right? Or if you want to have completion or frac job or whatever. Downstream, these guys you call when you need basically new separator or a new hydrocracker or all the things that are in refineries. And these guys with midstream that you call when you want pipeline and anything in the midstream. And then again, you have these guys who basically does everything. I hope that's kind of okay. If it's not, just say something in the chat or raise your hand. Okay. So now that you understand the different parts of the oil and gas value chain or the oil and gas industry, the sectors, the different companies and what they do, let's look into the skills that you have to acquire or you have to basically work in these companies. First thing, you have to have analytical skills. And this is really for any engineering job. They will take you because you're an engineer, right? You're an engineer, but you won't take you because you're a petroleum engineer or a chemical engineer or like a civil engineer. When you talk about the international oil companies or service companies, they're only looking for skills rather than what major are you in. So this is something that you have to keep in mind. So again, analytical skill. Can you analyze the data? Can you look at the data? Can you spot different patterns? Can you say something about this? Do you have some sort of programming skills? Can you solve maybe like a huge problem or like maybe a medium problem with doing, a computer code or have, an innovative idea? That's something very important. Complex problem solving skills. Again, we're feeding into the analytical skills. So you analyze the data and you come up with a solution that solves the problem that this data has. Third thing, strong science and computing knowledge. It's really, really important nowadays because, well, the entire world, not only the oil and gas industry, is going through the digitalization, right? And finally, the teamwork skills. As you can probably tell from what I said, your geologist will find the oil. He will go talk to the reservoir engineer. The reservoir engineer is going to do some sort of a job as well. And then they will go and talk to the drilling engineer. and then the drilling engineer would go talk to the production engineer. So it's really a value chain in terms of the industry itself and in terms of the teams. So basically, each one has to work with the other to have a coherent project. So your teamwork skills is really very important. Again, all these things are pretty generic because it's kind of required for every job, not just the oil and gas jobs. But in our job, things can be really tricky. So if you miscalculated any pressure or anything, you can have a kickoff or like a kick, which is a gas coming out of the well, which basically would kill everyone, which what happened in Macondo. I'm not sure if you know Macondo, but it's this great explosion that happened in the Gulf of Mexico. I would say, I don't know, it was years ago, and it made a great pollution, and it killed many people. So I guess what I'm trying to say, any mistake can be catastrophic. So yes, these things are very important. All right. So one skill that I would say that is very important is that you also stay knowledgeable, that you have to read a lot. You have to know about the industry a lot, and you have to know pretty much everything that's going on. So what are the jobs that you as a chemical engineer can do? First of all, you can work as a lab chemist in really anything. You can work as drilling fluids engineer. So when we drill, we add something called mud to cool off the drilling bit and to remove the cuttings. Let me give you an analogy. Do you know the wall drill? If you drill a wall, you will have these flyaways, right? And they will clog the hole you're trying to make. So we add the mud to basically cool off this drilling bit, which is the drill we have, and to remove all these cuttings and all these flyaways so you can have a clean hole. And yeah, this is the drilling fluid or mud engineer work. The fluid we drill with is called mud. So it's all additives. It's all, it's basically a brine, and then you add bentonite, you add other additives. So as a chemical engineer, you would know pretty much a lot about fluids. So this is a great job for chemical engineers. Then you have stimulation engineers, which is frac fluids, again, with the fluids. Stimulation is when you're not producing as much, then you go inside the formation and you frac it, or you create a crack in the formation so your oil can flow better, right? You break the formation with a high pressure fluid. This high pressure fluid is the frac fluid. Again, the chemical engineer would know a great deal about fluids. You can work as completion engineer, which and you can work with completion fluid. Completion engineer is the one who puts all the casings and tubings and all these things that kind of connect the subsurface to the surface. So it's the tubes or the pipelines that your fluid or your oil and gas flow in to reach the surface. And of course, you can work as a production engineer. Flow assurance engineer. So what is flow assurance? Flow assurance is assuring, hence the name, that the fluid in the subsurface would reach actually the last point of selling, right? So you're talking from the formation until you sell it in the refinery, right? And yeah. So why is that important? Do you know the paraffinic wax, or like? Of course you do. I think you took like organic chemistry. So what does that has to do with us here? Basically, the oil contains this wax, and this is just an example. There are a lot of other examples, right? So when your oil contains this wax, what happens to the wax at high temperature? It becomes liquid, right? But what happens when the temperature is reduced? It becomes solid. So in the formation, the temperature is high, the wax is liquid. but then we go up to the surface, the temperature is reduced, then your wax is solid again, and it will become solid basically in your pipeline. So when it comes solid in your pipeline, all the wax will deposit on inside basically your pipeline, right? So it will reduce the cross-sectional area, so your oil won't be able to flow, right? So what do you need to do is maybe heating station at every each like section of the pipe, or you do something else that is called pigging. Pigging, you put a pig. It's not an actual pig. It's not an animal. It's a device that goes through the pipeline to kind of scrape off the wax from the walls of the pipeline. And that's just like, in a nutshell, basically what the flow assurance engineer will do, right? This is just one example. There are a lot of things. It's a huge science. But it depends on a lot of things. Thermodynamics, it will depend on heat transfer. All these things that you took in heat transfer and thermodynamics and fluid mechanics, all these concepts are applied in the flow assurance engineer. So it's basically, I've never seen a petroleum engineer working as a flow assurance engineer. It's always chemical engineers because they are the masters when it comes to this. You could work as a cement engineer. So as I said, if you remember the completion, we put these sort of, pipes in the subsurface. So if you put the pipe like this and lift it, it's just going to go back and forth, right? So you have to cement the pipe in the ground so it does not move. And this is a job for a cement engineer. I guess from that, I just wanted to say you can do whatever you want to do. There is a learning curve, and it's going to be steep at any job you'll be in. So really, you can do anything. For example, I did not work as anything in this list, but what I did is work as a geomechanics engineer, which is looking at earth stresses. Which is something that we never looked at university because my background is natural gas and petrochemicals. So it's more of a chemical engineering rather than petroleum engineering. But then what I really looked at is something that I'm sure you're taking. I looked at your syllabus, which is the material or material strength. You will take this elastic deformation and plastic deformation. You will look at Young's modulus and Poisson ratio. I'm pretty sure you understand what I'm saying right now. And these are the things that I kind of worked off. So really, you can do anything you want to do. So as we said, here's the value chain. Exploration as a chemical engineer, not so much unless you really want to be a reservoir engineer and, for example, you join one of the service companies so you can learn. Production, obviously, refining, and then marketing at the end. Again, what I wanted to say is that you need to read a lot. You need to know a lot about the industry. You need to know what are the trends in the industry are, because this is how you will stand out. So you would read about the top 10 oil and gas industry trends. What are they? Look at the news. As of now, we have COP26 happening, which is the climate change, the UN climate change conference happening in Glasgow in UK. You can take a look about the outcome of this conference. What are people pledging? What is the next steps? And what does that really mean for us as petroleum engineers or as chemical engineers? So, they talk a lot about the emissions of carbon dioxide, right? So they also talk about how to capture a lot of these emissions and store them. Well, the capturing part is purely chemical engineering. So if you want to look at the new trend, this is something that you can get involved in, right? So networking. Why did I mention that? Well, rumor has it you won't be able to get a job until you have a network and a really good network. which I would say is not 100% true, but probably 90, 85% true because of these reasons. So if you have a good network or you have a good networking skills and you know a lot of people, it makes you noticeable. People will know you and they will notice you and they will recommend you later on. It's an avenue for new opportunities. If you don't know a lot of people, there are a lot of opportunities out there that are not publicized or not put forward for everyone to see them. You would be able to get some sort of an insight if you have a great network. Reassessing your qualifications. So when you know a lot of people, you'd be able to know if basically you're on the right track, or are there other things that you need to look into, or there are other things that you need to learn to stand out, basically. And an extra resource library, because, for example, you'll talk to someone and you'll know something new, you'll learn something new, you'll know about a new paper, for example. You'll know about a new, I don't know, research, and you can, maybe this is your next thing to do. So it serves like a library as well. You'll get support from high profile individuals. And that's totally true, because when you know a lot of people, you'd be able to get places faster, you'd be able to talk to higher level people, and then when these higher level people support you, you'll be able basically to get stuff. And it will give you growth in your self-confidence. How? Because the more you network, the more you increase your self-confidence, the more you're able to talk, I would say, fluently with people. You'll be able to talk about specific subjects. You'd be able to open new subject, and you'd be able to present yourself better. Like, I think you might heard of the 3 minutes elevator pitch, which is basically how to pitch yourself in 3 minutes if you're standing with a high profile individual or a CEO. You'd be able to get there faster, and you'd be able to do this with high confidence and on point if you practice that a lot by networking. And the most important thing is that you'll be able to develop long-lasting relationships with all these people, and it will come in handy. Don't burn bridges. Be nice to everyone and be professional. And let me tell you something. When you network effectively, you'd be able to expand your network very fast, because you're meeting this person, and this person, because he thinks you're great, he's going to really introduce you to a whole other people, in his network. So you're going to be able to expand your network efficiently and fast. And this is what networking does for you. So let's talk a bit about SPE. What SPE can do for you? Well, it can do a lot. Let me tell you that. Networking, for example, is one of the high strengths of SPE. It's where you can network a lot, where you can know a lot of people, where you can develop your skills, and where you can become a leader. If you're someone who's, 22 years of age, right, and you involve yourself with an SPE, and you can take a leadership position. So when you go to any, for example, interview or anything, you would be able to say, I took a leadership position and I did 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's very important for you in the hiring process. It's very important for you in the networking process and in knowledge gaining. You will, again, know a lot because you have the online library of One Petrol. You can read a lot. You can get yourself familiarized with all topics within the industry, within all the hot topics in the industry. You can attend really a lot of conferences and all these things. Sorry. You can attend a lot of conferences and a lot of these things. So kind of to, again, expand your network. So unfortunately, I cannot see you, but I'm going to play these photos and ask you if you know this person or not. Do you know who's the guy on the right? I cannot see you. Can you just like give me a thumbs up or like raise hands or anything? Because
Yes,
this is really difficult.
we know him.
Oh, okay, perfect. I'm sure you do. He's the Minister of Oil in Bahrain. And you can see here he was interviewed by the SPE president. Do you think the Minister of Oil would come and talk to anyone? I don't think so, right? Okay, let's take the second person. Do you know who this guy is? I think it's written. He's the Minister of Oil in Egypt. Again, he was interviewed by Kamel Ben-Sur, who is this person, who is the SPE president. And let me tell you something about Kamel Ben-Sur. He was the Minister of Oil in Tunisia. Do you think the Minister of Oil in Tunisia would be in something that is not very high profile and very, amazing? Okay, third person. Do you know who's this? If you look here, that's Bernard Looney, the CEO of BP. Does this look familiar? He's speaking at an SP event. Fourth person, do you know who's this guy? No? This is Amin Nasser. He's the CEO of Aramco. Does this look familiar? He's speaking at an SP event. So you can attend conferences, you can talk to these people, you can see them, and you can gain knowledge just by listening to them. So do you think now SP is very important or not? For me personally, yes, 100%. I've built my entire career working with SPE, getting to know people, networking, and getting a lot of opportunities. I met my boss in SPE, and I met a lot of other people in SPE. I worked for the United Nations because I met the United Nations Sustainable Energy Director at SPE. And I've had a lot of opportunities handed to me because of SPE. So even if you're not going to be working in the industry, networking won't be less important. So even if you're working in another industry, I would say you have to stay an SPE member because someday you'll come back. Someday you might be working in the energy sector and then you will need to reconnect with the people that you connected with in SPE, and then it won't be possible because, you left a long time ago. So always keep your SPE membership, always talk to people, always keep your relationships, and always try to be, a great candidate so you stand out. It will never get old. It will never basically, get bad or anything because of the climate change conferences or all these things. We're here to stay. I'm telling you that. So yeah, I hope I changed your maybes to yeses. And with that, I end the presentation. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm ready to ask questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nihal. It was very beneficial.
Okay.
The floor is open. Anyone to ask?
Okay, not a single question. This is a good thing or a bad thing? It's either was really good or was really bad.
It was
I
very
take it
good.
this way. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, I want to ask if I want to participate in some, I don't know how to participate in SPE, but if I wanted to participate, what activities can I participate in as a student? Yeah.
Okay, so as a student, you have your student chapter at the university. You can participate with the student chapter. just, to organize things and to look into things and stuff like that. But if you want an international experience, you still have to work with your student chapter. And then you can apply for a lot of things. Do you guys know ADPEC? ADPEC is a huge Middle East conference. It's the Abu Dhabi. It's held in Abu Dhabi, and it's under the sponsorship of ADNOC. So there is this university program that you can participate in. You have the IPTC, which is International Petroleum Technology Conference that is happening in Saudi in February, I believe, or January, something like that. But I believe it's February. You can participate in the student program there. And if you get selected, SPE would basically pay everything for you to travel. I know Saudi is like really, across the bridge, but, it's a good opportunity. There's also the annual technical conference and exhibition that is happening in the United States. If you have a paper that you want to present, there is the student paper contest. You can present your paper within the student paper contest. And if you want, SPE will also pay for you to go to the United States and present your paper there. And maybe you'll win the grand prize, which is, I believe, for undergraduates, it's $3,000 or something. So there are a lot of activities within the student chapter and outside also the student chapters. If you log into SPE.org, you can really look into what are the things that you can do with SPE that can benefit your career. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Someone is raising their hand.
Yeah,
Yes,
hi.
Hello.
This is me, Hisham. I'm not a student. I'm actually close to retirement. So, but I really enjoyed this presentation. Thank you, Nihal,
Thank you so much.
for such a wonderful presentation. And Dr. Mohammed bin Shams, thanks for making the arrangement. It's really, what I loved about this presentation is the way Nihal put the ideas. I wish I've seen this presentation when I was a student. Actually, we came to know about SPE later in working life. It wasn't that big in this part of the world, but I'm very happy to be a part of SPE. I'm a 35-year member, by the way, in SPE, so it's been really worth it. If there's something I wanted to add to Nihal's point, is that SPE is undergoing some positive transformation. So we're looking into merging with other societies, and we're going to expand, how do you say, the umbrella to cover more energy elements into SPE. So, I'm for sure hydrogen will be under that umbrella, carbon capture, underground storage. You have other maybe renewables that hasn't been decided yet, but it is going to expand, become an energy society. That's how we see it, and it will play a very bigger role than what it does today. There is that commitment to net zero. SPE is not anti net zero. Actually, SPE is for net zero. So it will be able to guide the industry and provide a platform for communication between governments and corporations, companies, individuals, societies. It will be a healthy platform to disseminate knowledge and share knowledge and best practices and lessons learned. So SPE is going to have a bigger role. So what I loved really about Nihal is the last message, stick with SPE. It's not going anywhere. So so thank you all. I hope this was useful presentation for all students. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I do agree, SPE is leading a lot of the low carbon technologies right now. If you want to dig deeper, if that's something of your interest, there's a group within SPE called SRMS, which is Reserves Management. And it talks basically about the carbon capture and storage and how do you classify the storage resources and all these things. But if it's like too big at this point because you guys are undergraduates, then maybe if you want, we can have another presentation just to go through these things if you want to understand it, of course. But yeah, thank you. And if you don't know who just spoke, I don't want to say because maybe he doesn't want to say who he is, but he's on the board of directors of Society of Petroleum Engineers. He's the Middle East director. So yeah.
Thank you, Nihal. I forgot to say that. Thank you.
Okay.
Just now, if you allow me, there are a few questions in the chat.
Oh, sure. I'm so sorry. Did not see that.
You want me to read them, or I can read
Yeah,
them for you?
sure.
Let's go one by one. The first
Okay.
question is, are there any sectors or parts of the oil and gas industry that are specifically seeking female engineers? Also, what are some tips for any future internships, especially as a student?
Okay, that's a really good question, actually. Is there a specific part that is looking into female engineers? I would say no, but I would say yes. How is that? So back in the day, you would hear like, okay, this is a field position, so you're not allowed to go. But as of now, this is not the case. If you want to look into field positions, and it's really, really good here at Bahrain because you really can go to the field in the morning and go home by the night, you know? It's not the case in other countries. You would spend like 2 months in the field. So I would strongly recommend you to apply for these service companies like Schlumberger, Halliburton, Baker Hughes as a field engineer trainee. This will be a great opportunity to get hands-on experience on what's happening in the oil field. And they basically pay very well, let's say that. And they teach you very well as well. Like they go with you step by step, explaining and supporting, because this is part of their mission. So I would definitely go for the service companies to, again, get hands-on experience on the operations. Hope this answers the question.
Thank you. She also added, do you have any advice on stepping out of your comfort zone and grabbing opportunities?
Yeah, okay. If you feel okay, then you're doing a bad job. That's my, or at least this is my experience. Once you get out of your comfort zone, you're gonna feel a lot of pressures and a lot of things that, you know, I should not do that. I should have stayed at home. I should not traveled. I should have, you know, you'll have this struggle at the beginning of that, but then you'll achieve great things because trust me when I tell you, nothing good happens in the comfort zone. You have to step out and you have to do a lot of things. And you guys are the future. You guys are the important ones, I would say, because once you go out of your comfort zone, I wouldn't really tie it to travel, but I would tie it to the opportunities. It's really on you to show how the Bahraini youth are great. It's really on you to represent your country and do great things. So yeah, the country is basically within your hands. And I know this might sound like a cliche, but trust me, it's not. Like when you go out, like imagine if you go out and someone met you and you said, like, I'm from Bahrain and you're doing great things and you are smart and you're great and you're representable. They would go and say, you know, Bahraini youth are amazing. And just because they saw one person. So get out of your comfort zone and go do great things. This is what I'm going to do. And once you, like, I'm not making anything sound lighter or like not, like pray and then take this route and just, be persistent until you finish this and you'll feel great after you finish. Not so much in the beginning, but great at the end. Yeah.
I totally agree. There's another question. He's asking about the learning curve of different sectors and the industry. Does the learning curve start from now as a student, or where can we find the resources to learn more?
Okay. Okay. So let me tell you something. The learning curve never stops. You'll always have to learn. There are always like new technologies and new things, and you'll never stop learning. When I said the learning curve will be steep, is because as chemical engineers, we don't have the subsurface knowledge. So you'll start from scratch when you're talking about reservoirs. We're talking that you're going to be trying to understand what is porosity, what is permeability, what is, I don't know, irreducible water saturation, which is like kind of definitions for other engineers, or like something that is, very easy that you're going to start from scratch. So this is why I said the learning curve is going to be steep, but really you won't stop learning throughout your whole life. That's not even a question, right? What are the sources? So SP is a great resource. Honestly, you have SP books, you have great papers, you have great articles. So let's talk about something specific. If you want to understand I would say the key definitions and what they're standing for and stuff like that, you have your PetroWiki. So you can log into PetroWiki and look into these definitions, what they mean, and they will have examples for you there. There's the Oilfield Glossary by Schlumberger. This is also a great one. And then when you want to kind of dig deeper into the matter and you want to read more papers and know more things, you can get into One Petro, which is the online library for SPE. There are a lot of resources there. You can read really whatever you want. And I think it's free for you guys because you're students. You have also Science Direct, but I would say SP is more relevant. But if you want to learn about more things that are chemical engineering, then Science Direct is your place, I would say. There are like a lot of resources out there. You have edX, for example, in Coursera. They have a lot of engineering, I would say, courses, like kind of crash courses or something like that if you want to really learn very fast about a specific topic. So something that you guys have that we did not have back in the day is really a plethora of resources. Yeah.
One last question. It says,
Sure.
Can you talk about your work experience?
Yes, I definitely can. So I graduated from Alexandria University in Egypt with, as I said, natural gas and petrochemicals engineering background. I was the student chapter president for my student chapter, obviously. So, and then I had like lots of, relationships with the industry. I applied for Schlumberger and kind of got like an internship after I graduated with Schlumberger, which is not allowed. I have to be a student to get this internship, but I got it because I knew them. Again, the power of networking, right? And then when I finished, I got a job by this person at that time was the technical director for completions on the SP International Board. He offered me a job. I didn't even ask for a job. I was asking him about something else, and he said, "Come and apply for us, and let's interview you." And I ended up working with them for 6 years. I worked as a consultant. I worked with ADNOC as a consultant. I worked with PDO, Petroleum Development Oman. I worked with Chevron in Indonesia. I worked with ConocoPhillips in Alaska, Petrobras in Brazil. I worked with TotalEnergies in France. And after these 6 years, I decided that I want to learn more because my knowledge was concentrated on the geomechanics part of things because I had to learn for the job again. So I really wanted a broader, view on the oil industry and to really understand everything because I'm kind of a perfectionist, right? So I went and got my MSc from Imperial College. I graduated, I think, a month ago-ish, kind of this situation. And during my time at Imperial College, I did an internship with Total Energies in Po in the research center in France. I did also an internship with the United Nations. I did an internship with OGCI, which is the Oil and Gas Climate Initiative. And who else did I work with? Yeah, I worked with ERCE, which is ERC Evolution. It's the new energy transition part of ERC, which is a big company in the UK. Yeah, and I've gotten like several opportunities as well, like working with IOGP, which is the International Association of Oil and Gas Producers. Yeah, so like a lot of things going on. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Hopefully, yeah.
MashaAllah, you're very inspiration for all of us.
Okay.
I think we've done here. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Jamie Hall, for taking the time to join us. Hope to see you soon. Thank you, and have a good
Thank
night.
you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you
you for
all.
having me.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Bye.
Thank you very much.